Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. This week is a special week for me. I know we always have awesome guests, but our guest today is like family for me. Actually, I claim them as my own, so there's no running away from it. Bruce Spencer, if you've been following at all the Timberwolves and the Warriors playoff run, and you've heard about Pat Spencer, it is Pat Spencer's dad, who also is a dear friend of mine, so much so that we're family in many respects. So we're going to talk some hoops today.
That's right. She's Dawn Mitchell from Fox 9. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune and the founder of TalkNorth.com. Thanks to Bruce for joining us. I played lacrosse for many years, and I was watching Pat play the other day, and I was thinking, he plays basketball just like a lacrosse player would play basketball. Chippy, skilled, tough. So it's been a blast to watch. Just want to remind you, we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. Best way to listen to this show or any of our many shows at TalkNorth.com. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. Thanks to our sponsors, Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood, Natreum, Natreum.com, and Giggly THC Beverages. Back to Dawn.
All right, Jim, thanks so much. Now, I know people are saying, why are we talking Warriors? We should be talking Timberwolves, but I'm focusing on Pat Spencer. And if you don't know the backstory, Pat Spencer, and you've seen him on the court, everybody, number 61. He's got that mustache. He comes from a lacrosse background, but that's just scratching the surface. There's so much more to Patrick. I call him Patrick sometimes, than meets the eye. And Bruce, thank you so much for coming on here and talking. I know you and Donna, your wife, my dear friend also, you've been doing media left and right during this whole run. It's kind of like Pat's persona has become iconic lately. He's been pulled over on the highway for autographs. It's been kind of a crazy run for your family and you, huh?
It has really been a really crazy run because, he grew up and had quite a presence in the lacrosse world. But, that's a much smaller community, more of a niche play, whereas the NBA is certainly global and certainly within the playoffs. There aren't many games going on a given night. So, a lot of eyes are on you, and it's been very flattering the amount of attention that the family has received, by way of Pat and certainly his brother Cam. And then obviously, we've got a third son, William, who's actually graduating college this weekend. But yeah, it's been very flattering to participate. And no harm in having Warriors talk here within Minnesota, I hope.
That's right. For people who are listening and they don't know, so Cam played on UConn's team that won the national title. So your family kind of in a blender on that. And when Pat was kind of doing a two-way contract, G League, and Will also plays basketball at Hood. Is it university or college? It's university,
Hood College,
correct?
in Frederick, Maryland.
Hood College.
Yeah. Hood College, yeah.
So it's funny. People are like, how do they do it? But that's kind of been your guys' life, your entire life. Going to sporting events for the three of these guys, probably having a food bill that I can't even imagine. But just most recently, I just really love when you guys were here staying at my house for the game most recently on Thursday. And you're on the phone. You're kind of like, all right, I'm arranging flights so the two brothers can get out to San Francisco to do this, to do that. And it just is so second nature. It's like juggling knives and fire all at the same time. But I don't think you guys would have it any other way.
We wouldn't change a thing, and it's what we're used to. Sometimes people ask, are you enjoying it? And that's nowhere near the right word, because there's a lot of stress that goes with watching your kids play sports. Think about it, even if they're in some of the high school levels or even the youth sports that go on today. And you get that level of energy when your son or daughter is playing. And that doesn't go away. In fact, it just gets, more accelerated as you relate to the higher stage. So it's we wouldn't change a thing. Again, I couldn't describe it, and you didn't describe it as enjoyable, but you see what goes on behind the scenes, where you're always in motion and trying to manage the emotions of everything involved, from one son to the next, and then trying to make sure, keeping it real like we do in our family. Patrick didn't have a good game in the second game, and having a few minutes to talk to him afterwards made the trip all worthwhile, just to have a few minutes to try to be there for him as his dad. So he's standing ready for the next opportunity. He didn't play in game 3, but hopefully going to get some time tonight in game 4 if we're lucky.
Yeah, we're sitting at the game, and I think you're apologizing to me, right? Like, hey, I'm sorry, it's not being a good game, and I'm like, oh, I'm the last person you need to explain this to, right? I'm no cheering in the press box girl, right? I deal with these guys in the locker room after, so you were just like, Don is like, I just can't even watch. I just can't even watch. It's those family emotions that I think. And we've had this discussion on this podcast before. Sometimes I can't watch games with quote unquote civilians, because they want to talk about, oh, did you get the hot dog at the stand? And I'm like, I'm trying to watch the game. You guys were just on this whole different level.
Yeah, well, I guess I try to explain to people, you have to consider it as if I'm playing the game. Like in my mind, I'm playing the game right now, right? So you just have to hope that people understand around you that that's what your mindset is at the time. And then certainly after the game, you just basically have the discussions and debriefs and enjoy it. But it's during the game, now there's a whole nother level. And anybody who's watched their kids play sports, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, you also have Cam, who was drafted, and he plays for the Memphis Grizzlies, and the two of them faced each other. Now, in years past, you might have seen like Mama Kelsey in the football, right? Like, oh, okay, you're split. How do you split your heart that way? What was that like? I know for me, just like Erica Auntie Dawn, I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to cheer for both sides. I'm just going to cheer for both. But how do you feel?
Well, I got to ease into it a little bit because the first time they were facing each other, the two teams it was out in San Francisco, and I was out there for it. And Cameron was hurt, and Patrick really wasn't seeing any time at the time. So I got to go, and it was kind of much ado about nothing because they didn't face each other. And then I was sitting there, I think it was January 3rd time frame. And it was, I don't know, I'll get my days wrong, but it was a few days before the actual game. And we hadn't connected dots that, there's a real chance they're going to play and face each other. And I think the date was January 6th where they were facing each other, and Donna went out and she got an opportunity to see it all live. And it's exciting going into the game, but you don't really know what to expect until it happens. And if, when you describe the Kelseys, it's one person's on one side of the ball, the other's on the other side of the ball on the team. So what happens is that for those who may have seen it, Patrick checks into the game. And at the time, Taylor Jenkins, the Memphis Grizzlies head coach, observed it, puts Cam in immediately following, and then says, "You're guarding Patrick." Well, as a parent, that was a whole nother level of, I don't even know who to vote for. Or who to root for or what to do. I was beside myself, frankly. And I think Donna was too. And she was there living it. So covering each other was a whole nother level that we hadn't anticipated, really.
That's like the best picture that I have saved on my phone is them, hand on someone's hip, kind of like, oh, you're not getting past me. And I'm like, gosh, that's probably like way back in the days, because nothing in your house was shall we say, easy. It was competitive, right? Everything was competitive. I think you were on an interview. Donna was on an interview in the back of my car this past week with a Fox station out in San Francisco. And they asked about, we heard if Patrick was playing checkers, if he got mad or was losing, he'd flip the board. And you go, all of us would flip the board.
Yeah, we've had some humbling, embarrassing times within the household based on that competitive nature, for sure. But I wouldn't apologize for it, and it's a matter of, it's kind of makes you who you are. But where you get a little sticky, if somebody kind of understands it and has that competitive sense themselves, then it's really not too bumpy. But if somebody has minimal competitive spirit in their being, just trying to explain some of that behavior to them is a little more than awkward at times, for sure.
I've been bragging about Cam. Pat even said, hey, Will's playing over at Hood a few times on this podcast where people are probably like, shut up.
Well, thank you.
I love it so much. But when people say, oh, he played lacrosse, I'm talking about Pat. I'm like, no, he didn't just play lacrosse. Like, a Twortonton finalist all 4 years, like won it his senior year, number one overall draft in the lacrosse draft, and then decides I'm a better basketball player. And what I love, I think way back then, Donna had told me that there's a discussion like, listen, if you're going to say that, you know, you got to put your 100% into it, because there's so many haters out there, people that would have loved to have played D1 hoops, you know, that played basketball their whole, like they just focus on basketball, thinking, who's this kid thinking he can come from a lax background and step into D1? And he did that at Northwestern. What was that whole decision like in your household, and the advice that you gave him?
I think, you know, we knew there was a precedent set. I mean, nowadays you think about it, well, that's not that long ago, and you didn't have the chaos of the transfer portal like you have today. So we actually were leaning on some legacy stuff from the young man, Paulus, who had been at Duke. And we had the discussion early on as though, you know, you can always play a fifth year somewhere else because the precedent had been set. And that seems like ancient news in today's world. But at the time, that was the legacy we were living on as a precedent. So when it came time, he was respectful of his whole lacrosse, the team, the coaches. We're still good friends with all of them. And I think it really came down to, how do we navigate this? Because the only time that he could respectfully have any workouts or real conversations with a team was during the holiday break, the semester and holiday break, before the lacrosse season really, you know, jumped into action. So we navigated that. We had one tryout with a coach who did take some time. I won't name because we didn't end up there, but there was a gentleman who runs point for Under Armour, Jim Patsos. And he was good to Patrick as it related to, he was a liaison with many of the Under Armour college teams. And he wasn't, you know, rightfully not promoting, but he was dropping some hints about Patrick's desire. And to Northwestern's credit, they're an Under Armour school, and Chris Collins, they had a very young team. And I think he was very open-minded to provide Patrick with the opportunity. And Pat wanted to make the most of it. And he did. So I think the decision-making was, he didn't have lots of schools lined up per se, because he didn't have the ability to connect and communicate. Really, during the lacrosse season, what, you know, opportunities found us, I would generally run point out of respect for his lacrosse, you know, season going on. And we would debrief on it, you know, occasionally about what might be and what could be at a given opportunity. But ultimately, you know, the Big Ten provided a big stage. And Northwestern really looked like they could use his services, both on leadership, and Boo Buie was a young man coming in as a freshman there. And I think they leaned on Patrick to help Boo come along and his, you know, leadership and skill set. And it really just turned out great. I mean, the team didn't have a very good year, but at some level, hopefully he was able to lay some groundwork for some of the successes that Northwestern has had subsequently.
We'll take a break here to thank our many sponsors. We'll get back to this conversation. This is fascinating. I actually have a lacrosse question to start off the second half of the show. Thanks also to a great Minnesota company. I just keep hearing more and more good things about the way they treat people. Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
Thanks also to Lexus of Maplewood and Wayzata. And now Dawn's favorite ad. I tell you about Natreum all the time. There's the great shop in St. Louis Park. Also, you can go to Natreum, Natreum.com to get their products online, get them shipped to you. That's what I do these days. But I went to the store first because there are so many different products. They can help you in so many different ways, different flavors, different dosages, different ingredients. It's all healthy, but they're also all different. So go talk to a sales professional, figure out what's going to help you in your life. Today, I will highlight their bombs. Okay. I'm old, and I love it for sore muscles, tendonitis, arthritis, sore joints, whatever. You rub them on. They're antifungal, anti-infectious, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. They help with muscle pain. They can give you relief within 15 minutes. You can do it up to 3 times a day, and they don't smell bad. It doesn't smell like the old Ben Gay stuff. It actually smells good, but you'll barely notice it, and you'll feel better almost immediately. So check out Natreum in St. Louis Park, or go to Natreum.com to find out. And now my lacrosse question. I played lacrosse for a long time, and I just love the way I think lacrosse translates to so many other sports. What about Patrick's basketball game do you see being derived from his lacrosse experience?
Well, I think it a lot of it has to do, Jim, and if you've played, it's the spacing of it. There's six players on the offensive set, but I try to describe it to people in the basketball world when they hadn't seen lacrosse or experienced it, that it's a little bit inverted in that many times where Patrick was, you would start behind the basketball goal. So picture 5 players on a basketball court, but then you're going to contribute from an offensive standpoint, starting from behind the goal. And then the angles are in reverse order from being a point guard coming downhill at the basket. But at the same time, the angles are the angles. So, one thing that we used to say, and Patrick really used to say it more than anybody, is, nothing really good happens on the offensive end until somebody wins a matchup. So in lacrosse, it's about getting the right, think about the NBA today. It's about getting the right matchup and abusing the defensive situation you put the other team in, right? So in lacrosse, it's not uncommon where you've got somebody like Patrick, who he really even grew in college, where he became bigger, faster, stronger, as a collegiate athlete. And it really just posed more and more trouble for the defense each year he was there. So you're coming at the game from behind the net, and the angles are the angles. But bottom line is if you can win that initial matchup, you're creating a mismatch somewhere else where somebody has to, what they call in lacrosse is, slide for coverage. And that's really the similarity that I see the most, is win a matchup, create a mismatch or an opportunity for the offense that puts the defense at a disadvantage. And it's kind of the same for basketball for those who watch.
That's exactly right. To the uninitiated, it looks like a blend of soccer and hockey, but when you play it, it feels like a big basketball court.
It really does. The guys get asked a lot, and specifically Cam, what's the biggest change coming from college? So UConn ran very sophisticated offense, and Coach Hurley is a fantastic coach. But in the NBA, you've got a 24-second shot clock, so you basically can run one offensive set, and then you're spacing with the three-point line, the need to close out further. Well, think about that on a lacrosse field, how far you have to close out. So, in the lacrosse world, you've got something called EMO, just like hockey, where you've got, power plays. You've got an extra man offense where the defense has to play with down a man. And so in lacrosse, those are the mismatches you always are trying to get to. If you can be man up, they call it, then you're playing 6-on-5, which is a huge disadvantage for the defense. So everything you're trying to do in concept, even if you're playing at like strength, and 5-on-5 in basketball, it's how can I create a mismatch, whether that's using a pick and roll or whatever technique you're going to use as a team based on that mismatch you're trying to create. So not very, very, very similar to lacrosse with basketball.
Bruce, I wanted to get like the dad's perspective. I didn't ask you this when you guys were here this week, and I wanted to. I was like, I didn't ask. I know how the personalities are formed in your family, right? And the competitive juices and the mindsets of picking up different sports. But when you see like Patrick, get into that headbutt situation, which what was not much of a headbutt, by the way, or Cam even mixing it up, and then I think he got a fine that his teammate paid. They go in there and they have that energy. Draymond Green even said that too. Like your sons just kind of get in there. They're not afraid to show the fire. As a dad, are you like, yeah? Or are you like, I wish, I don't know. How are those situations for you?
You know what I think it is? In the moment, you're 100% all in, and
Yeah.
you're coming out of your skin with your kid there, right? Because you see the dynamics of what took place. I think
Hmm.
I start to formulate questions that I want to ask him after the games of what drove that behavior in that moment, like what caused that, and I think part of that is, if you go back, like with that particular Houston series and the plays before that, and talking to Pat, um, he feel, look, we've used hockey a little bit here. You're in Minnesota. Um,
Yeah.
Not that Patrick is the enforcer per se, but he did feel like there were some plays that maybe were not the best plays by Houston in a couple of given situations, and he felt like it was his turn to kind of come in and make his piece for his teammates. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't call that, basketball's level of enforcement. I will say that from a lacrosse and a basketball standpoint, on the toughness scale, he's been beat with a 6-foot pole for years and years and years. So basketball, as it relates to the need to be that tough, is much less. But at the same time, he did feel like he wanted to stand up for a teammate, and that's kind of what drove some of that. Then after that, obviously the headbutt was just yet another teammate for Houston, Şengün, basically sticking
Yep.
up for his teammate. So sometimes it just comes to a head, and I think, well, and sorry for the analogy there, because it did result in a small headbutt, but I think clearly the head-to-head contact drove that. It was a touch foul, if anything, but it was really head-to-head. So there you go. He's done. And I think going forward, he would probably know in the moment, okay, anything but a headbutt, because he wasn't really
Right.
looking to get thrown out of the game. We had some great momentum going. No, not here to say that we would have closed the 12 or 13 point gap with 4 minutes to go, but we clearly had momentum. And picture me coming out of my skin, but then also stepping back, kind of putting on your dad hat about finding out what happened in the moment. Is there anything I can contribute? He's 28 years old now, so not a whole lot I contribute other than to listen many times.
Well, I love that, because even after this last game on Thursday, you and Pat had your dad kind of chat off to the side, and I was telling Donna, I said, this is what I love, and if you watched any of the NFL stuff on Netflix, they also had George Kittle and his relationship with his dad. So it doesn't matter what sport it is, but these athletes still need their dad. They have their coaches, they have all that, but you can bring like the anxiety level even after a game where they've had a little bit of a cool down. You can take it from a 10 down to a 4, just by talking to your kid like you have your entire time. I think George Kittle said his dad writes him a letter, either after every single game. That's just their way, of course, kind of keeping the correspondence going if he's not at the game. But that debrief, I think it's cool that you said, like, you formulate those questions in your mind, because you want to know where he stands from a basketball IQ standpoint, right? Let me just pick your brain, but also an emotional standpoint. And then it all for me, that was a absolutely beautiful moment, that we stood back and I got to observe. And just from, you might say, hey, this is what we do all the time. But I think that it doesn't matter how old your kid gets, they still need that. Don't you think?
Well, I think it's as much as I'd love to say that it's me being a parent in that moment, I think it's, honestly, it's just listening to see if he's got anything that he needs to offload. Because think about it. You finished a game. The team didn't achieve its objective of winning. You didn't play a very good game, and now you're going to have to fly home. The series is 1-1, and I think it's just trying to figure out. I think it's any individual, whether it's in your business life or your athletic life or whatever. If you're really trying to contribute in a positive way, a lot of times it really simply involves listening to understand what's going on. Mind you, I didn't play basketball or really any sports at a high level. I consider myself athletic, but nowhere near what these kids are doing. And, they play at a level where I'm still understanding the NBA game, understanding the mindset, what goes into it. There are just so many things that I'm even trying to process in those moments too. But sometimes just, as you can tell on here, I can gab a little bit, but I try to listen in those moments for what I think they might need. And He's his own guy. He always has been. All of our kids have been, independent thinkers that way. But listening is hopefully a pretty good skill in the moment.
What I've really enjoyed is back to that Draymond Green after the game where he just he spoke a full, I don't know, maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes about Pat specifically, but how he got on him, how he's a great teammate, how he's a voice, how this team needs him. Proud moments. There's also an amazing story about Pat in The Athletic. How does that make you feel? I know how you feel, but I want the listeners to know how you feel about all of that.
Well, I think the most proud thing, and again, it's a little conflicting in that, we're pretty private as it relates to the boys don't have, they're young men now, but they don't have social media. They don't have a presence. They don't have a care for it per se. And that's fine. So Donna and I, my wife and I, we are kind of the eyes and ears of the goings on in the social media stuff. So, when I saw that from Draymond, it was so nicely done and so well said. And as a parent, that's truly you thinking about it from a parental perspective. And to say the things that he said about Patrick, that's the stuff, that's something that I would share with Patrick. Like, hey, man, this is what your teammate is saying about you. This is something you need to know. There's a lot of stuff on social media. The guys don't care to know, don't want to know, and they really don't, they're not bothered by it. Say whatever you care to. But when I see something like that from Draymond, that's when you really kind of put on your parent hat, like, hey, I think we're doing okay with these young men,
Well, after the first game on Tuesday, when I went down there, I put on my auntie hat and I showed him some of the social media. I showed him the one with like Pat Spencer or Kareem. You be the judge as he's doing the sky hook, right? Another one was, yo, Curry, you good? We got Pat Spencer. And then they said, like, give me more Pat Spencer. And it was, I forget, Zoolander with the mustache guy coming out.
Yeah,
it was, and he laughed. He loved it. He goes, that is awesome. Like, that's fun. He may not be on social media, but to see that people are noticing his game, he legitly laughed at that stuff.
He does, and some of it is fun, right? I mean, social media has its very positive aspects, and I think, we've just coming out of Mother's Day, and there was just so much good vibe, feel coming out of Mother's Day with all the posts that you see from friends and family and everybody else. There's a lot of that you can convey. They try to just balance all of it. So if something negative finds them, there's occasionally something that's got some teeth to it that's negative that you want to convey, like, hey, you got to understand, and they do. Everybody's watching nowadays, and they're looking to catch you doing something wrong. And I don't worry about our boys that way because they're not doing it for the reasons of getting caught doing something wrong. They're just trying to do things for the right reasons and have some empathy for those around them. And they listen, they still have like a shoe or a hat or something that got tossed to them from when they were young people. So they understand that even though they're not, a Shaq or a Charles or a Steph or somebody like that, they're not anywhere in that capacity, but they do have some impact on some of the younger generation and others around them. So, they do hopefully watch their P's and Q's for all the right reasons.
Right. And what are you enjoying the most, Bruce?
Well, see, like I said, the word enjoy is a tough word, Dawn. So
what are you enduring at the moment?
What do I love the most? I love the fact that enjoy is just, it's a word that a lot of people use. And I get that would be used, but it's just simply, I can't even, when I hear it, I just have to just deflect because enjoy is not the word. Because, game 4 is tonight. Is he going to be in the rotation? Is Patrick going to be in the rotation or not? I have no idea. And so you sit and you watch that game. I think the thing I would step back and say is, there are a lot of guys at our sons' ages who are going to be working a desk job. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't, maybe they love it. But our guys are being able to monetize something that they love every day. And so to follow your dreams and to, help encourage others to do the same thing, I think that would be my most positive out of all of it. And then enjoying it with my family. When you look at it, we lost Donna's parents in 2023, and it was really, really tough. And it was really hard for them. We're a spiritual family to a degree and believe that they were watching Cam's 2024 UConn run. But Now my parents still get to enjoy. My dad's 93, my mom's 89, and they live for the Warriors games. It'll be on tonight at 10 o'clock East Coast time. Guess what? They're watching. Patrick might not see a minute, but we get to enjoy that with our family and friends. So I think that's probably what the biggest takeaway is, watching them pursue their dreams, monetize it a little bit, and then enjoy family and friends along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Knowing, especially Donna's mom and dad, and when they passed, they were at every single game. To have that your whole life, and then to in 1 year have them both gone is difficult for them to endure. But like you said, in a spiritual way, the signs that they're still there, and and the victories and what has come since, I don't know. I kind of think they're working up there. They're cheering from up there. They're pulling some strings, making their grandson's dreams kind of come true.
They are. For those who are believers, we truly have seen some very, very specific signs. Graham had something that she said 777. Patrick's number was 7 in lacrosse, and she would say, "Just give me seven goals and 7 assists." And she barely knew what she was talking about, but her number was 777. And you would be shocked at the number of times on a given game day when we see a sign and the 3 numbers 777 are a place that you would never dream they would be. And it freaks us out when it happens, but that's our sign that Graham is watching.
Yeah, I think Donna said she was walking by and she saw a sweatshirt and it said 777, manifest your dreams. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I got to buy that now, right? Unbelievable.
Literally. She said, I don't care if it's $1,000. It was a sweatshirt that had 777 on it. It was on the day of the UConn championship game. And they had no intent of going out and doing anything, but we needed to kill time during the day. They were finished their shopping spree. She was walking out and stopped waiting for somebody, and she looked down, and there was one single sweatshirt left that had 777, manifest your dreams on it.
Wow.
We freaked.
Yeah. I don't care how much it costs. It's going home with me today.
As you might guess, we own that one.
Some people always want to ask. They ask me a lot. Oh, okay. Oh, so Patrick would like. So what's he like? What's he like? And I said, let me just tell you, the whole family. It's, and you're saying it throughout this whole podcast, Bruce. Tight knit, right? Work hard, be good to others. Be competitive, do the right stuff. And what I say, this embodies it for me, that the very first game here in Minnesota, game 1, Patrick had in the stands his roommate from when he played in Germany, basketball, and a teammate from when he played lacrosse at Loyola. And they're sitting next to each other. And I'm like, hey, did you guys know each other before today? They're like, no. And they just met. And by the end, they're exchanging phone numbers and this and that, and laughing and joking. And Patrick, same with Cameron, same with William, they don't forget where they've come from. They don't forget the people they love, and they pull them forward with them. And I say that's Donna and Bruce. That's you guys and your whole family in a nutshell. So just, I was joking around before you hopped on the mic, and they said, how long have you known Patrick? I said, from birth, baptism, I held him at his baptism, to basketball, that kind of explains it. But you guys bring everyone that you love forward with you. So that speaks volumes of your parenting, both you and Donna, by the way.
Very, very kind. Yeah, these are very flattering calls, and I'll be coming out of my skin tonight, though. Don't worry. You want to see that side of me. That's why I sit at home to watch it.
That's right. I'll text you later. See how you're doing. Like after the last game, I'm like, you doing okay, Donna? You guys okay? It was a tough one. But Bruce, is there anything for parting words that you would love to say to, and the people here, majority in Minnesota, of course, are Wolves fans, but they love Patrick. They've been asking, like, who's the dude with the mustache? Who's the guy wearing 61? What's going on with 61? And then I explained how he got the number, how he says 6 + 1, he told me this, is 7, his lacrosse number. And 60 is the amount of guys that are drafted. And I wasn't drafted. So 61. And I love that. But what do you want to say as a final word to our listeners about just the joy and the love that whether he wins or loses, Pat brings to the court tonight?
I think the thing is just what you just described there with the using the number 61, because people are, scratching their head. Why on earth would you pick that for a basketball number? And really that you're free to share it now, because I've seen Patrick share it publicly. So
yes,
it really comes down to follow your own journey. Every young person out there has a dream. And I think as a parent, your goal is to help them find something that they'll love and be passionate about. And it doesn't matter what it is. Some kids will be an athlete. Some kids will be in music. Some kids will be in art. Whatever it is, just, and Patrick said it recently publicly, again, because he's pretty private guy. So some of this has become recently public. So I feel like I can talk about it. But it's be there to support your kids and help them follow their dreams. And don't level set with them, because there's no reason that he would have pursued basketball to this degree. Donna sometimes says she was the one who said, I think you're crazy. But in fact, she's the one who is the dreamer. I'm the more practical one. I thought more along the lines of, are you out of your mind? But I never said it. And she's more, go for it. So let your kids go for it. And then if, it doesn't work out, just be there for them.
Those are wise words. Bruce, thank you. Thanks for the time today. Thanks for opening up. I know that you guys we are all private about it, but now that Patrick's feeling a little bit more comfortable to say some things and kind of like feeling the love from everyone, it can be overwhelming at times, but to know, hey, I'm doing something right for this to happen, that's a pretty good feeling.
I would agree. And Dawn, thank you very much. Jim, you talked about it with lacrosse. I would say that the lacrosse community has been so supportive. And then he did have a fair amount of media attention within the lacrosse world. So I think that was a really good ground to kind of train on. And now it's a much bigger stage. So he's pretty comfortable there and having conversations. And, we wish all of our kids the best, just like everyone does. So thank you all very much for having me.
Thank you, Bruce. And by the way, I got a few friends in the Bay. I got a lot of friends in the Bay Area, but if Pat ever comes across Ann Killian or Tim Kawakami or Ron Kroichek, those are good people to know out there.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I'll listen to this playback and I'll write those names down. I didn't get them, but I'll get them later.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Well, Bruce Spencer, Pat's dad, my dear, I'm just going to call you my brother. Why not?
Amen.
We have been ever since we've met. So thank you so much for this time and good luck in game 4. And game 5 is back in Minnesota, so my door is always open. I might have you put you to work fixing some things around my house again, but door's always open. Poor Bruce fixing my house.
You might get a knock. Thank you all very much.
Best of luck, Bruce. Thank you.
Take care.